Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. And today we are going to be continuing on with our journey through World War I. So I'm going to share my screen right quick with you. And yeah, here you go. Chapter 11, Section 2, A New Kind of War. I'm going to wait for it to load. All right, that was your warm-up. Okay, our objectives, we're going to learn how the Allies stopped the Schlieffen Plan and the stalemate that followed. Explain how new technology to warfare changed how wars were now fought. And we're going to understand how the Great War actually included the nations, not just in Europe, but around the world. So, to war we go. And this is about, this is a map of the entire war. But as you can see, we have a Western Front, an Eastern Front, a Balkan area, and Gallipoli, and all this over here in Armenia. All right, so Schlieffen, no work. As war began, Germany, fought their way through Belgium, and they were on their way to Paris. However, Belgians surprised the Germans at how much they resisted, but Germany will still eventually win. And reasons why the Schlieffen Plan did not work. Russia, the world's largest country, mobilized quicker than expected, and after a few small Russian victories, German generals had to start sending troops to the Eastern Front. And now you have German soldiers on two different fronts, which is what they wanted to avoid. September 1914. British and French troops pushed the German drive at the Marne River, and it ended Germany's quest for a quick win in the West. And so you have a stalemate. And what is a stalemate? When there are no real winners, and it's just give and take, give and take. As optimistic as you could be, the soldiers thought this war would be quickly thought and it'd be over by winter, so they can go home and tend to their crops. Boy, were they wrong. Following the Marne defeat, both sides began to dig in the trenches to protect their sides from enemy fire, and it's similar to the trenches that were used in World War II, obviously. They weren't ready for how long it would take, and it ended up being a long stalemate. Mr. Ovi is just kicking up the bars today in class. And battle lines would virtually remain the same for 4 years, where they would get out of the trenches, charge through no man's land, only to be forced back to retreat to the previous trenches they just came from. And it was literal inch by inch, yard by yard fighting, no real victors. All right, new technology. So test question. The casualties on the Western Front were due to new modifications of powerful weapons, the rapid fire machine gun and the long range artillery gun. So machine guns mowed down waves of soldiers across no man's land, which I just described. No man's land is the area in between one trench and an enemy trench, and no man's land is, you don't want to be caught there because you're going to get mowed down with this new technology. No more like shoot, reload, and it takes 2 minutes to reload a musket, fill it back up, shoot. No, they were able to figure out how to rapidly fire guns. Then you have shrapnel, which is the flying debris from artillery shells. If you can't think of artillery shells, think of Clash of Clans, Clash Royale. Think of the mortar. That is an artillery shell. So shrapnel is the debris from the shell of a big, I wouldn't say a bomb, but it's just, yeah. And it killed and wounded more soldiers than machine guns actually did, because yes, they are new, but they are highly inaccurate. Artillery allowed enemies to bomb each other from more than 10 miles away. So here's the rapid fire machine gun, Gatling gun, whatever you want to call it. And here's a picture of from a World War I museum, and this is a picture of shrapnel. And if you can see, you know, it's not like these people are wearing face guards, face masks. All right, you know, they're wearing a helmet. Okay, and the debris, they didn't know, right? They didn't know upon impact that if you're near something, the explosion chucks out these, you know, it's just flying debris. And look at it. People get deformed. Sad to look at it. Okay, another new technology is poison gas, which Germany was followed by the Allies, and they began using this new weapon, 1915. Poison gas blinded or choked their victims and or caused agonizing burns or blisters, and it can be fatal. Eventually, both sides realized that gas masks were going to be a necessity for war for their soldiers. So poison gas is actually going to remain one of the most dreadful hazards of the war, because it just sits there. It just stays there, right? And it takes a while for it to go. And not this type of poison gas, you know, gasoline, coffee. All right, this kind. So you got rising through, you know, they just chucked a poison gas grenade, all right, and they're charging through no man's land wearing masks. So then you have tanks, airplanes, and submarines also were new inventions, new technology during World War I. The new technology of gasoline-powered engines left opposing forces to use tanks, airplanes, and submarines against each other. In 1916, Britain introduced the first tank, which they mounted with machine guns. Their intended use was to cross no man's land. However, the British tanks broke down often, and it didn't really end the stalemate. And at first, airplanes were used just to observe enemy troop movements. In 1915, the Germans used Zeppelins, which are large gas-filled balloons, to bomb the English coast. Later, planes would be attached with the machine guns, and air battles are going to be called dogfights. However, submarines proved to be the most useful of the new technology. German U-boats, or Unterseeboot, which is the German pronunciation. So if you want to say Unterseeboot, you're going to remember that for the rest of your life. And they damaged the Allied side heavily, which, you know, you have merchant ships carrying supplies to Britain from America because they're underwater, they're undetected. And to combat this, the Allies traveled in convoys to protect the supplies going from the United States to Britain. So here's a British tank, probably broken down. Actually, it's probably moving. Here's an airplane back in the day. Here's a representation of a dogfight. There's a submarine, very big, cast ashore. This is the introduction of convoys. So you have the so you have armed trawlers right in the middle, and then you have the merchant ships on either side, and they're going together. And on the outside, you have destroyers zigzagging, you know, trying to catch. And then you have a Q ship, which is a merchant ship concealed with guns, posing as a convoy strike, like they missed the boat. And yeah, you're just trying to protect your goods going across, right? trying to protect. So, Eastern Front. There was no trench warfare on the Eastern Front in Russia, and that's going to lead to higher casualties, but the front was just as indecisive as the West. August 1914, Russians pushed Germans back into East Germany, and the Russians will suffer a huge defeat at Tannenberg, causing them to retreat back to Russia. As the least industrialized European nation, Russia was clearly unprepared to fight a modern war like this. Some troops even lacked, some troops actually lacked rifles and guns, bullets. However, generals still would send them to the front lines. If you got a gun, make it seem like you can fire and charge at them as best you can and try and kill. Proved that's poor. That's poor leadership right there. Battles were not only fought in France and Russia. It was also the Balkan, Southern Europe region was another battleground. So part of that, the question of the Triple Entente, Triple Alliance turning into Central Powers and Allied powers. This is also part of that question. And I know it traverses 2 lectures, but it's important to know. So you might want to star this slide, because in 1915, Bulgaria joined the Central Powers, which helped defeat their old Balkan rival of Serbia. Romania, however, was hopeful to gain land from Austria-Hungary, so they joined the Allies in 1916. They were eventually destroyed by the Central Powers. In 1915, Italy declared war on Austria-Hungary and later Germany. Now remember, that is a key switch, because Italy was once a part of the Triple Alliance. And then they switched sides during the war after they saw how brutal it was and said, well, we're going to get on the winning side. But was there a winning side? You tell me. So there was a secret agreement amongst allies that Italy would get some Austrian land that was not inhabited by Italians. And as we looked, Austria always had a hand in Italy that's why we covered the unification of Italy, because this is going to come up again. There are 11 battles fought along the Isonzo River. Germany and Austria-Hungary launched an offensive at Caporetto. The Italians retreated, and that was just as bad as a defeat as Tannenberg was for Russia. Caporetto was for Italy. So not looking good for the Allies. Again, here are the fronts. You have the Eastern Front, you have the Western Front, you have the Italian Front, Caporetto right here. You have the Balkan campaign, the Romanian campaign, the Caucasus campaign, Mesopotamian campaign, Palestinian, Dardanelles. I mean, they could just call it the Great Europe War, if I'm not mistaken. But the war included the world as well. Japan will side with Britain. Again, stemming from that first test question, Japan now joins with Britain on the Allied powers, and they look to seize German outposts in China. Due to its location, the Ottoman Empire was a desirable ally. If the Ottoman Empire joined the Allied powers, Germany would be trapped. If you don't know where this is the Ottoman Empire right here. Modern day Turkey. But the Ottoman Turks actually joined the Central Powers. In late October 1914, they cut off a crucial Allied supply line to Russia through the Dardanelles between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. As we see right here, Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Russia. Okay. They couldn't really go through here because that's a lot of hoopla. 1915, Allies are going to send a massive force of British, Indian, Australian, and New Zealand troops to open up the Strait of the Dardanelles. It's called the Battle of Gallipoli, and the Turks will trap the Allies on the beaches, and after 10 months of fighting and 200,000 deaths, the Allies withdrew from the Dardanelles. So again, another map, okay, and Gallipoli is fought from April to January of the next year. And who led that campaign? Future to be named later Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Meanwhile, in Turkey, at the same time, Turkey were fighting Russians in the Caucasus Mountains on Turkey's northern border, and is home of ethnic Armenians, some who lived under the Ottoman Empire, some lived under the Russian Empire. As Christians, Armenians were a minority and did not have the same rights as Muslims in the Ottoman Empire. Turkish Armenians sided with the Allies and helped Russia against the Ottoman Turks. The Ottoman Empire government saw this cooperation as a chance to deport the entire Armenian population south of Syria and Mesopotamia, kick them out. So around 600,000 to 1.5 million Armenians will die due to deportations. These were through coordinated massacres, starvation tactics, the forcing to march. Some fled in disguise. They just up and left. And this is not only is it more relevant in today's world, but it was also modeled in the movie The Promise in 2016. If you want to check out that, I usually show it in class. The what do you call it? The trailer, the movie trailer. That is I forget what campaign this is. That's not the Caucasus Mountains, though. So there's a third front for the Ottoman Empire, and they were hit hard in the Middle East. The Ottoman Empire included also the vast Arab land as well, and Arab nationalists led by a man named Hussein ibn Ali declared a revolt against Ottoman rule. The Brits, who, oil is vastly sought after in the Middle East at this time. And the Brits have had a long-standing relationship in the Middle East, Arab country, so Arab territory. So they will send reinforcements to protect their interests. So the British sent Colonel T.E. Lawrence, aka Lawrence of Arabia, to support the Arab revolt. Lawrence will lead guerrilla tactics, dynamiting bridges and supply trains, hit and run, hide and seek. And the Ottoman Empire lost significant land to Arabs, especially the crucial city of Baghdad. That is T.E. Lawrence. War in the colonies. So you have Allies are going to overrun the scattered German colonies in Africa and Asia, take them over. They will in turn choose to ask their colonies and dominions for troops, laborers, and supplies, because that's what a colony is for. The people in the colonies had mixed feelings about serving in the war, however. They felt that they were mistreated, so why fight their oppressor? Others saw it as an opportunity towards citizenship and or independence from the mother country. So, hey, this is our chance. If we help them win, they'll give us our freedom, right? Because we all know imperialism wasn't so good. And hey, we're done. So that concludes this lecture. It was kind of short. A few test questions were given out. So hopefully you paid attention to that. Your homework is to do page 363, 363, 3 through 6. Yeah, no 3 through 5 here, 3 through 6. So hopefully you did enjoy. Make sure you smash that like button for this hair. And as always, stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.